It's time for another marathon here in the Chronicles, and this time around, it'll revolve around a certain speedy blue mammal, which we all know that to be good old Sonic the Hedgehog. Back in 2017, I created my first game review marathon for the channel, and Sonic the Hedgehog was the main focus, as I was reviewing the games for the Sega Genesis and Sonic CD for its add-on flop, the Sega CD. And now would be a good time to make another marathon of the series, now that it has turned 30 years since its first game. For this marathon, I'll be turning my attention to the 8-bit Sonic games, which a lot of people never actually played, and I only had about little experiences playing them. But how do these games hold up today? For this marathon, I'll be the judge of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Sonic the Hedgehog Marathon Volume 2, Sega Master System and Sega Game Gear. I've mentioned before that Alex Kidd was Sega's mascot at the time when the Sega Master System hit the market here in the US to serve as competition for the NES during the third generation era of gaming. However, Alex Kidd during those years didn't really click with gamers that much, and the NES was dominating in sales. That's when people like Yuji Naka came, and he and others in his team would create Sonic the Hedgehog to be Sega's main mascot, and the character's very first game on the Sega Genesis went on to be gold for the company. However, not many people would know that the Sega Master System would also have some more games being produced, with games from the Sonic series not only being produced for the console, but also being produced for Sega's handheld, the Sega Game Gear. I've mentioned this handheld before in my Donald Duck Games review, in which the Game Gear itself was intended to be competition to the Game Boy. It was definitely ahead of its time due to having actual colors and a backlit screen, but its shortcoming comes from the fact that it eats up so much energy out of batteries that you're better off playing the handheld with its AC adapter plugged on. Even though the handheld got about 10 million in sales, there's still a cult following amongst fans, as there are games for the handheld that are exclusive, especially some Sonic the Hedgehog titles that you can't get anywhere else except on compilations like Sonic Mega Collection Plus and Sonic Gems Collection, which I'm using for this marathon. And just like Some Call Me Johnny, I'll also review 2 games per episode in this marathon, as the 8-bit games are not exactly that long, with the exception of one game, and even then I'll squeeze that in with another game within the same episode. Now, I've only played these games a few times, if only because during those times, I never owned a Game Gear. I only played it a little bit with my cousins back in the day, and I was more focused into console gaming, and never really gave handheld gaming that much attention, apart from a few first-party Game Boy titles as well as Pokemon. Nowadays, with the advent of the PlayStation Portable, the DS family, the PlayStation Vita, and the Nintendo Switch, I'm beginning to invest more on handheld gaming because their games are much longer and give me enough reason to actually play longer. Of course, we'll start this marathon off with the first two Sonic the Hedgehog titles, and despite sharing the same name as their Genesis counterparts, there are some major differences between them, which I'll get into. In addition, Sonic 1 and 2 Game Gear were initially Sega Master System games before Sega decided to just port them onto the Game Gear anyway, and I'll also talk about the Master System versions of the games as well. Just for the record, I will not be talking about the Game Gear version of Sonic Spinball, as I've already concluded the fact that the version sucks so badly. You can check it out at the end of my Sonic Spinball review from 2017. With that out of the way, let's start 8-bit Sonic 1. Just like the Genesis version, you have the basic plot of South Island being enslaved by Dr. Eggman, and it's up to Sonic to stop the mad scientist as usual. The game has 6 zones, and the third act of each stage will have you facing against Eggman himself. Of the 6 zones of the game, half of them are borrowed from the Genesis version, starting with the ever-familiar Green Hill Zone, only with no loops for some reason, which are common tropes in Sonic games when you like to see him pick up speed. But then the whole game has no loops at all, oddly enough. Oh well, moving on. There's also the infamous Labyrinth Zone, complete with many areas to drown and have a hard time trying to find spawning air bubbles, and Scrap Brain Zone, which is a little more forgiving in the 8-bit version in comparison, and its second act, while labyrinthine in design, is not too threatening. There are 3 stages that are exclusive to this game. Immediately after Green Hill Zone, you have the aptly titled Bridge Zone, which has so much platforming with bridges that break down, and its second act is an auto-scrolling level. Yep, predating Lava Reef Zone Act 2 by 3 years. There's also Jungle Zone, with more intense platforming, and if you're playing the Master System version, the higher you ascend the waterfall, the floor below you is instant death, meaning you can't save yourself in case you mess up, which I'll talk about more later. Then right after Scrap Brain Zone, you then proceed to Sky Base Zone, which you have to deal with electric zappers in Act 1, followed by pursuing Dr. Eggman in an airship in Act 2 with no rings at all, and you gotta rely on your reflexes if you wish to live, which is a low blow for me. The Genesis games have their own degree of challenges, but in 8-bit Sonic 1, the difficulty level can be slightly higher in my opinion. Whenever you get hurt, you can still try to get some rings back for protection. Not in this game. Once you get hit, you lose that ring, so you better hope that there's a ring box or a cache of rings nearby to save yourself. Some of the usual item boxes are still present in the game. Checkpoints now come in the form of down arrow boxes, and unlike the original, you don't get Chaos Emeralds on special stages anymore. Granted, special stages still exist, and the requirement to enter one is get 50 or more rings at the end of an act, and their purpose is to only score extra lives and continues, the latter of which is easier said than done due to getting bounced all over the place. And you really need those continues, especially for Labyrinth Zone, for obvious reasons, and Skybase Zone Act 2, as you don't have any rings to save yourself. There are only 6 Chaos Emeralds in the game, and they can be found on the playing field. There's only 1 emerald in each zone, and you have to carefully search each act and try to remember where they are placed the next time you boot up the game. The feeling of controlling Sonic is about the same as in the Genesis, if a bit tighter. In terms of graphics, I'd say they're quite impressive for 8-bit, still giving rich colors and a vivid atmosphere. The same can also be said on the Game Gear port, which is impressive for the handheld, but the downside is that you have to put up with the game's screen crunching, which will make every platforming a leap of faith. Earlier, I mentioned that in Jungle Zone Act 1, the higher you ascend the waterfall, the floor below you is instant death, in which people refer to it as Contra Syndrome. But it was fixed in the Game Gear version, so you don't have to worry about losing lives when you fall down. And in some acts of each zone, would have exclamation signs to warn you of incoming pits. With the exception of the final match, Sonic can easily take out Dr. Eggman in the Game Gear version due to the small resolution. Overall, I think the game is structured well. It still maintains the basic fundamentals of its 16-bit counterpart. The gameplay, design, and audio are solid, and while replay value for me is not in the level of the original, I still enjoy the game for what it is. Though you're better off playing the Master System version as you have a bigger resolution without having to deal with so much frustration. However, if you want frustration, look no further than 8-bit Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and unlike the 16-bit version, this one, I just don't have that much fun with. According to Some Call Me Johnny, who also reviewed this game, Sonic 2 8-bit predates the 16-bit game by a whole month, when the former was released in October 1992, which means this game is also the real debut of Tails, and not a good one at that. If you think Silver the Hedgehog debuting in Sonic 2006 was bad, well, this game sure gives Tails the short end of the stick in a hurry, as the intro of the game starts off with Tails being abducted by Dr. Eggman and demands for the still 6 Chaos Emeralds to be handed over in exchange for Tails, or else he kicks the bucket. Yeah, I'll immediately start off with how dark this game is with implied death. Keywords, implied death. Because if you don't get all 6 Chaos Emeralds before the penultimate zone, it is implied that Tails was killed off screen by Eggman, which in itself is very morbid for a game that's supposed to be enjoyed by all ages. I'll say right now that no matter the version, 8-bit Sonic 2 is very difficult to play, and that's due to much harder placements of the Chaos Emeralds, and the game took so many steps backwards to make the experience more daunting. For instance, there are no checkpoints, no special stages to get more continues, and no barriers for extra protection. The leaps of faith in Game Gear Sonic 2 has been doubled from the first game, and just about every stage loves spike traps to ruin your day. Also, why is Tails showing up in every stage card? Isn't the whole plot about Sonic rescuing him from Eggman? Speaking of Dr. Eggman, you still don't have rings to save yourself in Act 3, and his boss matches are more difficult to handle, especially with screen crunch in the Game Gear version, that the game requires strict reflexes and memorization, and what's this? At the end of Underground Zone Act 3, Dr. Eggman saves his nemesis from getting consumed by the magma? Why? Why do that? That could have been instant victory for him, and he can have full reign to do whatever he wants. That's like if Dr. Wily were to save Mega Man from falling into a pit of spikes. I hate to bring Kingdom Hearts 3 into this, but at least up until the end of the final match, Xehanort has no qualms of conjuring conspiracies on his quest for power, despite his stupid reason for doing so. There are some stage gimmicks that are unique to this game, such as minecarts in Underground Zone, which surprisingly is the first stage of the game, those crazy tubes in Scramble Egg Zone, which you don't know where you'll end up, and believe me, we'll see more of those later down the line, the bad controls on the hand glider, or you actually riding a bubble, a gimmick that would resurface years later in Sonic Mania. The audio of the game is not too memorable in my opinion, with the exception of Underground Zone, and Green Hill Zone, the latter of which was used as the basis for the Japanese and European intro of Sonic CD. And for the record, it's Green Hill with an S on the end, to differentiate itself from Sonic 1's Green Hill. More power to you if you like this game. Even if I did have more experience, everything in the 16-bit version is more tolerable than this game. Despite the difficulty, I still suggest playing the Master System version, as you can see many things ahead without taking too much risk due to the higher resolution. Overall, Sonic 1 gets an 8, while Sonic 2 gets a 6.5. Even with the Master System version, Sonic 2 just took so many steps backwards that I think Sonic 1 is more tolerable despite also having some flaws itself. I would like to thank you viewers for taking the time to check out this episode, and if you find this episode interesting as well as other content in my channel, feel free to subscribe to my channel at any time if you haven't done so yet, as well as follow me on social media. Your support will be greatly appreciated, and it'll help my channel immensely. So thank you so much for taking the time to check out my channel. So up next to the Chronicles, we're going to be looking at 2 Sonic games in which one I had some experience with, and one that I didn't exactly have that much experience with, but after trying it out, it's actually a really fun game. So up next to the Chronicles, continuing with the Sonic the Hedgehog Marathon Volume 2, will be Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble, also known in Japan as Sonic and Tails and Sonic and Tails 2 respectively. Until then, this has been Musashi X, and I bid you all farewell, take care, and stay tuned.